7 B-2 spirits, 14 GBU-57 bunker busters, 0 confirmations. If that headline pulled you in, you're in the right place, because tonight we separate shock from signal. Did the world's stealthiest bombers really crush hardened targets in Iran, or are we watching a masterclass in psychological deterrence? You'll get a tactical breakdown of how a real strike would look: flight paths, tanker chains, satellite cues, and diplomatic fallout. And we'll test the claim against those signatures: what should be visible, what isn't, and why that matters. Comment your choice below: real strike or strategic bluff. Before we move on, I'd like to ask you a small favor. If you appreciate this content, please take a second to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Over 98% of you watch the videos without subscribing. It costs you nothing, but it makes a huge difference to us. So, did you click the subscribe button? Great. Thank you so much. Now, back to the video. 7 stealth bombers in the dark, and yet the sky stays quiet. If that sortie really moved, you wouldn't need a radar feed to feel it. You could sit on your couch, open a flight tracker, and start pulling threads. A real multi-ship B-2 deep strike starts hours before wheels roll. Base alert sets the clock. Crews move to planning cells, stack routes, and lock comm windows. Mission data loads flow to each jet, and launch sequencing staggers takeoff to keep spacing tight without telegraphing a wave. On the ramp, support lines surge: fuel, power, specialized munitions handling. Then the bay doors close and the ghosts slip out. But stealth hides the blades, not the wind they stir. 7 bombers don't cross oceans alone. They drink. KC-135s or KC-40 SIXS carve wide racetracks in known refuel boxes, running predictable ovals to feed each leg. AWACS orbits may sit farther back, but they shape airspace and give a safety net. Route deconfliction pulls civil traffic clear and opens corridors. That's the loud picture. That's what you can actually see. Think of the strike as a stealth spear that still needs a visible shaft. Those refueling arcs hang in the air like chalk lines, lazy loops that repeat, stack, and linger. Open-source trackers flag that kind of pattern. You scroll a map and find clustered tankers plowing the same ovals. You don't need to know who they're feeding to know something heavy is moving. Meanwhile, satellites don't sleep. Commercial SAR can image through cloud and night, flashing grids over bomber bases and suspected target zones. If 7 spirits launched, analysts would watch for unusual runway prep, shelters opened and closed in odd sequences, tow tugs in places they rarely appear, and last-minute munitions vans near the weapons base. Optical shots the next day would cross-check, but SAR gives the first hints. Think of satellite tasking like a lighthouse sweep across a dark harbor. If a strike happened, the beam would keep catching on odd shapes: fresh heat on taxiways, unusual dispersal of support trucks, or sudden clutter in tanker hubs. 1 pass might not prove it. 3 passes into a day start to draw a picture. Before this, big bomber messages left breadcrumbs. Public releases framed flights as reassurance. Allies nodded and mentioned coordination. High-res imagery showed extra activity on known ramps. Even when details stayed sealed, the edges leaked. You could stitch the story from base tempo, fuel arcs, and timely statements. So line up what we would expect against what we have now. Persistent tanker stacks on the route out and back. Surge logistics at bomber bases. More vehicles, longer generator runs, abnormal thermal blooms. Allied air defense posture clicking over to eyes wide, with fighters on short leashes and radar nets laced tight. If the story holds, those signals should be obvious across a full news cycle. Right now, that board looks thin. No clustered tanker racetracks hanging for hours. No visible ramp surge tied to a 7-ship move. No Allied confirmations folding into a chorus. Silence can be tactical. Silence can also be a tell that nothing moved. If this strike happened at that scale, satellite signatures would close the case. Expect tanker orbits grouped like beads on a string, visible across known refuel zones. Expect sudden runway heat signatures and shelter footprints at the launch base. Then thermal scars at hardened sites that look like punched circles in rock. Expect blast patterns that match deep penetrators, not surface pops. Expect diplomatic alerts within hours as governments calibrate risk and response. If the sky stays quiet, we test the steel. Let's put the claim under physics and fuse logic. What a GBU 57 does when it meets rock and reinforced concrete decides whether those targets lived or folded. If the bombs fell, could they touch what Iran buries? The answer lives in physics, not headlines. You measure this in mass, speed, angles, and seconds on a fuse. You measure it in how a hardened door fails, how rock cracks, and whether a tunnel system can swallow shock and stay breathing. Start with the delivery system. The B-2 is built to move heavy steel into defended airspace, unseen long enough to matter. Low observable shaping keeps sensors guessing, while precision navigation holds the jet on a narrow thread through mountains, gaps in radar, and timing gates. Its bay carries weapons meant for hard targets, and the crew trains to hit exact aim points, to the meter and to the second, because a miss by a little is a waste by a lot. Now the tension. A 30,000-pound penetrator sounds final. It isn't. Depth is not a number. It's a fight with geology and design. Dense rock resists more than layered soil. Overburden adds meters that bleed off speed. Reinforced shells bend the shock, and internal baffles turn blast into a dull thud downrange. The target is fighting back before the bomb even arrives. Think of the GBU-57 as a steel drill bit with a brain. Its mass and velocity do the cutting, but the fuse decides when the teeth bite. It wants to stay asleep through soil and concrete, then wake up inside the cavity it was built to kill. Get the timing wrong, and you waste energy near the lid. Get it right, and the shock loads the whole chamber, not just the front wall. Public details paint the broad lines. This class of warhead is purpose-built for deeply buried and hardened targets. It needs precise aim points to find weak spots, the right dive angle to keep penetration straight, and careful spacing so one blast doesn't blunt the next. Even success can be fragile. A follow-on weapon might need to finish what the first one cracked. Multi-ship timing works like a metronome. Aircraft enter from separated lanes, hit their release windows inside tight seconds, and peel in staggered exits. That rhythm keeps jets out of each other's fragments and stays under air defense umbrellas that shift and stretch. You can't stack detonations too close or you cancel the gain. You can't spread them too far or the target resets between hits. Hardened sights don't wait to be hit. They seed the ground with decoys, hide real doors behind false fronts, and hang shock-absorbing tunnels like springs between the gate and the core. Even if you drop the lid, air can reroute. Power can come from a separate branch. That's why damage checks go beyond photos. Follow-on ISR maps fresh rubble, seismic sensors catch underground slams, and thermal passes hunt for heat trails that should have gone cold. So would 7 aircraft and 14 MOPS be too much or just enough? That depends on how many nodes you need to kill at once. One shaft, one door, one chamber is a simple math problem. A network is not. Each link demands its own aim point, its own angle, its own timing. Overkill on the wrong node is still failure. Here's the payoff. The GBU-57 earns its name by coupling mass with a delayed fuse to crack reinforced layers at extreme depth. It can reach where standard bombs quit, but its real reach is conditional. Rock type, cover thickness, and clever architecture decide whether that shock blooms or dies. A single strike can maul a site. It cannot promise a tomb. You know the tool and the tactic. Now weigh the silence, combat action, or calibrated deterrence. Real power has two halves, what you can do and when you choose to do it. Tonight we saw capability on display, but no decision to fire. That gap still moves the board. Strategic signaling works. When heavy assets stir, nerves tighten, phones light up, and choices shift without a single crater. You saw why. Systems speak even in silence, and silence can be a message. Comment your choice below, real strike or strategic bluff. If you want the mindset that cuts through noise, subscribe now. Watch the signals, not the thumbnails. Subscribe and join a community that seeks to understand the realities of modern conflict.